it's Jessica from Three Rivers Homestead, and as of today I'm 35 weeks pregnant, which means we're down to crunch time before baby number 7 joins us here. And it's a very interesting time of year for us to be having a baby. Most of our children have been born between the months of late January through early April. So we're very used to spring babies. We're not used to a summer baby. This baby's due June 14th, which will be so wonderful to have that time outdoors with the newborn baby and have the weather be nice. We're really looking forward to that. But late spring is our busiest time of year with putting in gardens and animals hatching and all of the other things that go along with a homestead this time of year. So it's crunch time, and I felt like I really needed to make a plan preparing for this baby to come. Having a baby is no different than any other big life-changing event. You know, a wedding is a huge life-changing event, and you hire wedding planners to help you with all of the details of that. When you move houses, that's a huge life-changing event, and it requires a plan set into action to make sure that everything that needs to get done before you move happens. And having a baby for me is no different. So I always like to, before I have the baby, in the last month or so, really buckle down and make a nice written plan for everything that needs to get done so that that postpartum period can go as smoothly as possible. There are a lot of people that have help postpartum, and that's so wonderful, and I wish every woman had help. I feel like we deserve that. You know, you go through 9 months of pregnancy, you deliver this baby, you're tired and you're fatigued. It would be so wonderful if we could have people that could come and help us, but unfortunately not all of us are in that place, and I've very rarely had help postpartum with my babies. Adam generally gets to take about, I don't know, anywhere from 2 to 5 days off of work, which is a blessing, and I feel very grateful for that. But once he goes back to work, most of the time I've been on my own with the other children, and because of that, it really requires me to have all of my ducks in a row, or as much as they can be with life with a lot of children in a busy home. But preparing as much as I can makes that postpartum period the least stressful it can be on me, so that I can maximize my time for rest and healing and everything else I need to get done, and still keep the household running smoothly and keep the older children cared well for. And so my thought with this video was I wanted to share with you my process for planning. I'm a planner by nature. It really helps my stress levels to have everything written down and to plan for as many possibilities as I can. And I know with having a baby, you can't always do that. There's things that can happen that we can't plan for. But if I plan for as much as I possibly can, it helps keep me calm, and it really does help that postpartum period. So I thought that if I shared this with you, maybe you could get some tips if you're going to be having a baby soon, or if you know someone who's having a baby soon, maybe this could help you too. I've kind of broken down my preparations into categories. I have preparing for the older children and the household and the needs of everybody, you know, other than me and the baby. Another category I have is preparing for the baby's needs, preparing for my postpartum needs, preparing for the actual birth, and preparing myself spiritually and my husband and for everything emotionally that happens with having the baby. And so I thought I'd kind of break this video down into those categories. I'll probably do another more in-depth video on the actual birth itself and preparing for that. This will be our 5th home birth. It's our 7th child, our 5th birth at home. And so there's a lot of preparation that goes into having a baby in your home, and I thought maybe I would share that in a separate video, but I will show you our plan for gathering everything that we need to have the birth. So follow along with me if this is something that interests you, and let's get started on what we need to do to prepare for this baby. So one of the biggest challenges for me in a large family and having a baby is preparing the house to run smoothly without me. Like I said, there are situations that could pop up. I could end up in the hospital with a very rough recovery or with a newborn baby that requires some hospitalization. And I need to have the house as organized as possible so that someone could step in and fill my shoes and get everything done that needs to be done. So that starts with writing down everything in a day that needs to get done. And so that's what I started. I made a list of all of my chores and responsibilities. And a lot of these I'm not necessarily responsible for. The children do a lot of these in their daily chores. But they're things that I manage and I need to oversee and make sure that the children are doing them. So if I have it all written down, it makes it very easy for someone else to step in and fill my shoes if I weren't here. I could hand them this list and they could go through and make sure, okay, did someone make sure to fill the Berkey this morning? Did someone make sure to, what are some things that are on here? Change the kitty litter and feed the cat. It just, everything that needs to get done, because Adam might not be here. He might be back at work and someone else might be here caring for the children that isn't used to running our household. This is really helpful. It gives me peace of mind that things would get done in my absence. So that was my first step, writing down all of my responsibilities. The second step is I have big kids. So I made a list of what I expect out of them or what I need to do to prepare them for this period if mom were, you know, stuck in bed with a very difficult recovery or up in the hospital with a baby or something like that. And so I needed to talk about my expectations. That's a big discussion we're going to have. I have that on my checklist of things to do. The second thing I need to do, since we are having a home birth with the older children, is to prepare them for the delivery. Prepare them for the sounds they're going to hear, maybe some of the things they're going to see, like there could be blood. Mom could sound like she's hurting. Preparing them in advance for these things. That's an important part of my preparation process. Right now for them, we're working on quiet time and nap time and really making sure that we have a plan in place so that mom can get as much rest as possible in the postpartum period. And then because we're a homeschooling family, setting up their independent schoolwork. And we're hoping to take at least a month off of school after the baby comes. But even when we take breaks from school, I like the kids to still be moving ahead in certain subjects and doing some academic work. And so I would like to be prepared and have that plan in place for what I expect out of them in terms of their schoolwork. So having a list of expectations for the big kids, that was my second part of preparing the house. You know, another really important thing, if someone were stepping into my role and filling my shoes in my absence, especially in an emergency situation, you know, not only do I like to nest and clean the house for myself, but I like to prepare for the possibility that someone could be having to open my cabinets to prepare the food for my kids, or they could be opening closets to find cleaning supplies and things. And, you know, I guess I want the house to be in tip-top shape, not only for myself and the baby, because I like that, you know, when you get into nesting mode and you want everything to be perfect in your little nest before you bring the baby home or whatever. But there is an element of, well, what if someone else had to come and do the things that I do? I want the house to be as spotless as I can for them. And so a big part of nesting for me is making a list of every single thing in the house that I want to have cleaned and perfect and organized before the baby comes. And like I said, it's a challenging time of year for us because we're spending a lot of time outside doing chores and things. And the inside of the house tends to get neglected during our busy homesteading periods. And so this is a top priority right now, is getting the house in tip-top shape before the baby comes. And then, because after the baby comes, I won't be able to do a lot of this cleaning for a while. And I can rely on the kids for a lot of the daily maintenance, but some of that really deep cleaning I want to do now while I still can. And so making this list was very helpful for me too. Food is a big one in our house. This is a big part of making sure our house runs smoothly in my absence. we aren't in a position as a family where we can accept meals from, let's say, like a meal train or a church meals ministry, things like that. People always want to drop food off to bless us after we have a baby, and I so appreciate the that they're willing to do that. But because of Gabriel's food allergies, we really can't risk the cross-contamination of someone making food in their kitchen that contains dairy and peanuts and then bringing that into our home where he could have an anaphylactic reaction. So we've never really been in a position to accept meals. We can't just order takeout or fast food. I can't have Adam just swing by somewhere and pick something up on the way home from work. We pretty much have to make our food from scratch. And if I'm not feeling well, like I can cook in that week or two following the birth, then that requires some planning in advance. And so that's just a big part of my preparations is the food. The first thing I've done is I'm starting to sketch out some meal ideas. And these are very basic, easy meal ideas that I know the older children are capable of preparing without me at all. And so I'm making a list of those. And then the second part of that is creating a grocery list then of the items that they're going to need to make those meals. Now, I enjoy making a lot of things from scratch. I grind my own flours to bake my own breads and things like that. And some of my kids are very interested in doing those things, but I can't count on them being able to do that in my absence, and I'm certainly not going to be able to do that with a newborn. And so a lot of the items on my grocery list are going to be convenience items for us. For us, just buying bread in the store is a convenience item, or having a little bit of dry cereal around and having store-bought almond milk instead of me making my own almond milk from scratch. These are the things that I'm going to need to have just to make it convenient and easy for the kids to prepare those meals for me. So on this grocery list, my goal is to have everything for at least 2 or 3 weeks of meals, ideally a month. I would like to not have to go to the grocery store and just have everything we need in the house. So I'm working on this master grocery list. That'll be really helpful. And then in the week, probably a week before my due date, I'll send Adam out to get everything we need on that list, and we should be set. And then the final part of that is I am doing a little bit of freezer cooking, and I'm making a plan for that. And freezer meals for us, I generally don't like to make dinners, like big freezer meals like that. The hardest meals often when I have a baby for me to make, I find, are breakfast and lunch. I could throw something in the crock pot easily and have that ready for dinner. That's no problem for me. But waking up tired when I haven't slept, with a fussy baby that needs nursed and trying to get breakfast on the table, that's a huge challenge for me. So a lot of what I'll focus on in my freezer cooking are things like muffins and soft breads, and let's see what else I have on here. I'll probably pre-cook some bacon and some sausage and things like that I can just pull out and warm up so that breakfasts will be as easy as possible. And then the same with lunch. We'll probably buy some bread, but I'll probably bake some breads too for sandwiches. I'll make some homemade tortillas and have those in the freezer. Pizza crusts, anything like that I can get done ahead of time will just make it all the easier for us to do after the baby comes. Okay, my next category that I really need to prepare for are the needs of the baby. And thankfully, this is baby number 7, so we have most everything that we need in terms of gear and clothing and cloth diapers. There really hasn't been much we've needed to purchase other than maybe some new nipples for bottles and some pacifiers, little things like that. But my job right now is to gather and wash and set up all of the gear that the baby is going to need for the postpartum period. So I do have a list for that. And on rainy days when I can't get in my garden, this has sort of been what I've been focusing on lately, is finding and washing and setting up all the things that the baby will need. And it's kind of fun getting out the little clothes and folding them up. It kind of helps with the anticipation and wanting to meet the baby. It makes it kind of real right now. The baby doesn't just have needs postpartum. I have needs postpartum. I think we tend to forget that labor is a very difficult physical process, and sometimes our culture, requires women to jump right back into their role right away. And often in the past, I've had to do that out of necessity. But your body needs some healing, and it needs some rest. And so preparing for that is really important for me, especially as an older mom. I'm not a spring chicken, and my energy isn't as great as it was when I had my first child at age 26. I'm 39, and so I do require a little more rest. And I know when I had baby number 6 2 years ago, I didn't bounce back quite as quickly as I have in the past. And I imagine it gets harder the more children you have and the older you get. So having a good healing postpartum experience is really important. And so my next preparation is I've prepared a list for my own postpartum care to make sure that I have everything I need, because only I in this household really know what I need. My husband doesn't know what it's like to have a baby, and so he's not going to prepare those things for me. I need to make sure that I've got it done. And so a lot of this list just includes things like making sure I have entertainment for myself for when I'm kind of locked up in the room after the baby comes, books to read or DVDs to watch, things like that. I have really bad back pain after I have the baby, so I do have a back binder, belly support that I need to make sure that I have available. The foods that I like to eat, I very often crave red meat after the birth, which is important for replenishing the iron that is lost with blood in the birth. So making sure those foods are on hand. The teas that I like to drink that help with milk supply and postpartum healing, those kinds of things. Just the supplies that you need after having a baby, your pads, your nursing pads, nursing bras, a peri bottle, herbal sitz baths, ice packs, pajamas that would be very comfortable for me during that postpartum period and with nursing and things like that. So I have my list here, and I'm working on gathering all of those things that I need in order to just take the best care of myself that I can following the birth. That's very important. Mom needs to put her oxygen mask on before she can save the rest of the family. And so if I don't heal well, it's just going to lead to bad outcomes for everybody else in the household. So don't forget to prioritize you during the postpartum period. So obviously with having a home birth, preparing for the actual birth itself is very important. And thankfully, my midwife provides me with a great detailed list of all the items she wants me to have on hand so that she can properly help me. And then I have a list of my own things that I find helpful, through past birth experiences. And I have that little checklist as well. It has things that I need for the actual birth, and things that I'm going to need for the baby immediately following the birth, and things that I'm going to need for myself immediately following the birth, and then also an emergency bag that needs to be packed in case we do need to transfer to the hospital. I don't want Adam to have to worry about scrambling to put together a bag of things that I need. I do like to be prepared for that outcome because it is a possibility. And I'll do an in-depth video on everything that's in my birth kit in preparing for a home birth, but just thought I would show you that preparing for the birth itself is part of this whole plan and getting everything ready for baby to come. Finally, the last category of preparations that need to be made for the postpartum period include spiritual preparations and preparations for my husband and I in terms of our marriage. These are very important things that often get neglected. Everybody gets so focused on the logistics of the planning and all of the physical work that needs done, but there is great spiritual work and emotional work that needs done in preparing for a baby to come. I know that when I have a baby, once that baby comes, I'm looking at a minimum of a year without sleep. I'm often not myself in terms of energy levels, and as a wife, I'm maybe not as attentive to my husband as I am during other seasons of life. And so we really need to prepare for that. And this isn't our first rodeo, and so Adam knows what is coming. But I also want to prepare for that. And so making sure that we carve out some alone time for dates before the baby comes so that we can kind of fill our cup a little bit, because we know it's going to be a while before that can happen again. That's really important and a huge priority here in our house. Talking with Adam a lot about his fears. You know, birth physically is very hard on a mother, but you know, it's very, very hard for my husband to watch me in that much pain and feel that helpless. And I recognize that. And while, yes, my pain is probably worse, I want to validate his feelings of anxiety and you know, everything that comes with being a husband, watching his wife go through that. So I like to talk over those fears, and I do try to prepare a little bit for the birth to make it as easy on him as possible. You know, the better place I am in spiritually and emotionally leading up to the birth, I feel like the better place he's in. You know, if I'm full of anxiety and fear, he's going to feel even worse because he sees me scared and he can't do anything to help that. And so part of preparing him for that is preparing myself. And so spiritually, I've got to run through, okay, what am I worried about with the baby coming? Am I worried about the actual birth itself? Am I worried about the health of the baby? Am I worried about my own health? Am I worried about how I'm going to handle another newborn with all of my other responsibilities? And then I need to take those things to the Lord and read the Word and really help myself with those anxieties, and then I'm going to be in a much better place to help Adam. So that's a huge priority for me right now. And while having your 7th baby, you may think that, well, this should be a piece of cake. You've done this 7 times before, but having your 7th just means that you have more experiences to draw on. You have had good birth outcomes and maybe some not so good birth outcomes. And so you know that there's a wide range of possibilities out there. You've also gone through the sleep deprivation many times and had different outcomes with that. So you know how bad that can get. And so it isn't easy just because this is your 7th child or your 4th child or your 10th child. Everyone is challenging, and you need to prepare spiritually for that. Sit down and really think about what is causing you anxiety or fear or stress. Plan for what you can to make those possibilities not happen. And then for the possibilities that you can't prepare for or cure, you just need to take it to the Lord in prayer and know that He will take care of you. And if you're in a good place, then your husband can be, or your partner can be in a good place of support for you, and you're going to have a better experience overall. So that is the plan. We have 5 weeks now. I generally go to my due date or longer, so I don't anticipate having this baby before the middle of June, but anything can happen with birth, so you never know. I'm trying to be prepared for all possibilities. But now's the time. I have everything planned out as best as I can. Now I can start checking things off and really feeling like we're putting a dent in everything that needs to get done before the baby comes here. And so I hope that if you're an expectant mother, you found this helpful. It is a crazy time to be having a baby right now with everything that's going on in the world with COVID. There have been mothers that have had to have their babies alone in the hospital. There are mothers that have suddenly made the switch to having a home birth because of their fears of having a baby in the hospital right now. For me, my biggest question as a result of everything going on right now is what Adam's job will look like. He has been off for the last 2 months, which has been wonderful for us, but we also don't know what the postpartum period will look like. If Adam ends up going back to work in June, he won't be able to take time off to help me. And we also can't count on family to come help me because there are many that are isolating themselves because of everything going on with COVID. And so I may be completely on my own, and that's okay. We'll get through it because we're planned and we're prepared, and the big kids know what I expect out of them. So I hope that you can find a way to prepare yourself and relieve some of your anxieties, and follow along with me on the rest of this this journey leading up to having the baby. I hope to share more on home birth and everything that goes along with preparing for that. And with that, I'm going to sign off here and get started working on my lists. So I hope you're having a blessed day, and I will see you later. Bye, friends.